Good morning, everybody. Wisconsin's 7th Congressional District Representative Tom Tiffany is our very special guest today. Thursday, March 13th, 2025. For DrydenWire.com, I'm Ben Dryden, and you're watching DrydenWire Live, presented by Americans for Prosperity Wisconsin. AFP Wisconsin works to reignite the American dream and break down government barriers that hold us back from our full potential. Visit AFPWisconsin.com to learn more and to join AFP to fight for more freedom for all Wisconsinites. With that, we welcome Wisconsin's 7th Congressional District Representative who joins us on the second Thursday every month, Congressman Tom Tiffany. Tom, good morning, sir. How are you?
Hey, good morning, Ben.
Where you don't seem to be in your office this morning. Or maybe that is your office. No, that's not your office. Where are you?
It's in my home office.
Your home office. Fancy.
Yeah, we made it home last night. We had a 3-day week this week and made it home late last night, and good to be home, especially with a couple of beautiful days. Man, I might get a little something done outside.
It's like 70, I think, on Friday. 65 to 70 degrees here in northwest Wisconsin. What?
Sweet.
I know. I got the four-wheeler out yesterday out of storage, and I'm like, oh, man, I think I'm ready to start going out. But then I went like a block, and I'm like, okay, wait, it's still too cold. But soon. Yeah. I heard one of my Washburn County Board Supervisor colleagues and a friend of mine was in D.C. I saw a picture of him on Facebook that he was in your office.
Yeah, your friend Miles came out with his family. It was terrific to be able to meet them. I'm sorry, I don't remember Miles' wife's name, but she teaches, is that right?
Yep, she does.
The Spooner School District, and
Yep.
that's awesome. Got to meet their two kids, and I got to see a picture. Man, Miles and his son are tall.
Yeah, I noticed that too because he put it on Facebook, and actually my first thought was, boy, Tom's a lot shorter than I remember. Or maybe,
Yeah.
That's funny. But I think their family's just tall as well. So, listen, we have a ton to get to today. Let's talk about some trending things that are just happening. Did you watch the debate last night, the Schimmel Crawford debate last night?
You know, I didn't get a chance because I was traveling home, but I got a chance this morning to take a look at a few clips of the debate, and looks like it was a good debate.
What were your takeaways from what you saw?
You know, one comment that I'd make is I do like Matt Smith on WISN down in Milwaukee.
Mm-hmm.
I think he does a good job of interviewing, and I didn't see the whole debate, so others can chime in on that. But generally, I find Matt to be a pretty good interviewer.
Yeah, I didn't watch it. I saw the clip. I can't watch debates anymore. They make me uncomfortable.
Me
Because
too.
at some point they're going to kind of go after each other, which I understand that's how it works. It just makes me uncomfortable. I don't like it. So I'll wait for the morning and watch the clip and the stuff. Good morning, Representative Gabe Magnifici. I think speaking of nice weather, I think she's still in Florida. And good morning, Carol. So this is the last show that you're going to be on before the election. How do you think I think the manufacturers, Wisconsin Manufacturers something, had a poll yesterday. We put it on our website that showed it was basically a dead heat, 47% each, with only 5% undecided. How do you think that's going to end up?
I think that poll's probably accurate. I've been saying all along, there's been a few polls that have come out that have been outliers. Oh my gosh, Angie Sapik. Good to hear from you, Angie. I think it's going to be a very close race. I don't think it's just going to be 51-49. I think it's going to be 50.5 to 49.5, or
Really?
It's going to be within a percentage point. I just think it's going to be a very close race. And I think, kind of like the presidential election in November, the deciding votes are going to be cast here in northern Wisconsin in the 7th Congressional District, northwest Wisconsin. And I think that's where it's going to be decided, because you had all these people turn out. Remember, Barron County, 96% turnout of their voters back on November 5th. Just an incredible number. We saw that throughout the north, Barron County leading the way. And if people show up in northern Wisconsin, Brad Schimmel's got a really good chance to win. If they don't, they say, hey, this race isn't that important to me, then he'll have a tougher time winning. So yeah. I think our region holds the key to this election.
Speaking of races and maybe people not really moving the needle for them, the DPI race is also on April 1st. I think that same poll showed that, I think it was of likely voters, that the incumbent Jill Underly was like at 33%, and I forget the other lady's name. She was on our show, Jeepers Creepers. What's
Yeah, Brittany
Brittany? Yeah,
Kinzer.
thank you. It was like a 30%, but interestingly, 33% of people of likely voters were still undecided. That's a huge, huge number. What does that number tell you? Is it really undecided, or is it? I kind of get the feeling like people just don't really care as much about that one. I mean, the people who do care really care, but
Yes, yeah, it's
yeah,
kind of a sleepy race, and Underly is clearly underperforming, and she's got a challenge in front of her. I think it really boils down if Kinzer is able to get up with some media here in the final few weeks, because I'm sure her campaign doesn't have a lot of money. But if they're able to get up on air and deliver their message, because it is clear Wisconsin's educational system is really going downhill. I mean, when you see the Secretary of the Department of Public Instruction agreeing to reduce the standards of education here in Wisconsin. And it doesn't matter what your political affiliation is. Wisconsin has always been a very proud state of its educational system, whether it's private education or public education. We've always been very proud of educating children well in the state of Wisconsin, and it's always been a priority. I mean, go back to the founding of the state. When it was originated, they set aside some of these programs, like selling off the land that the settlers were settling on in the mid 1800s. Some of those proceeds went into educational attainment. It's always been something that's so important to Wisconsinites, and it's a real problem for Underly, and I would say also for Governor Evers at this point, being the education governor, with education going downhill. I think for people that this is a big issue. I certainly wouldn't predict victory for Kinzer, but she's giving herself a chance at this point, and Underly's got a real problem. The one other thing I'd comment in regards to the Supreme Court race, I think one of the biggest challenges for Susan Crawford is that, number one, she has to answer the George Soros question. Sitting on the Judiciary Committee out in Washington, D.C., we've seen the Soros prosecutors around the country, Philadelphia, New York, San Francisco. If you remember, even San Francisco threw their district attorney out because the district attorney refused to prosecute crime properly. And these were all Soros prosecutors. Well, Soros is putting money in this race for a reason. So I think that's a tough question for Susan Crawford. And I don't know that she answered it very well last night about George Soros's involvement in pushing these weak on crime initiatives, which is clearly passé after the last few years. The second thing is, she made it very clear a number of years ago, she does not believe in photo ID. And photo ID is really to me, is the key marker of whether you believe in election integrity. Because if you don't support photo ID, people simply showing identification to be able to prove that they can vote in your state, then you're not going to support the other election integrity stuff either. And I think that's a real problem for Susan Crawford at this point, not supporting photo ID.
Well, let's get to photo ID in a second here, but you say the George Soros, but can't that argument be made, and it has been made, regarding Elon Musk?
Sure, they can certainly make that argument, but take a look at the two of them. Let's put them each in stark relief. So George Soros, weak on crime. Elon Musk wants to have accountability for how the taxpayers' money is being spent in Washington, D.C. I mean, whose side would you want to be on? And I get the other side is trying to tear Elon Musk apart at this point. But I mean, that's what he's doing. And most of the American people are like, yeah, we should have some accountability. I mean, this to me is one of the best examples that he came out is about a week ago. $56,000 to water 8 plants in a Department of Defense facility. And so he got rid of that spending. So now $56,000 is a pittance in terms of the federal budget, right? But don't you think it's really instructive? You're paying somebody $56,000 to water 8 plants. What they did at DOGE, they said, we'll water the plants and we'll suspend the contract.
Or just get fake plants. Really?
So I think that's the difference at this point. And I think they're like, including a lot of Democrats, are like, yeah, it's about time we have some accountability with this spending in Washington, D.C. There's a reason we're $36 trillion.
Well, and we saw this not long ago. Was It was President Obama. He essentially tried to do the same thing as well, and he had Joe Biden being this person. So this is not. I've seen a whole bunch of these clips on Facebook recently about these throwback clips of them in interviews are saying that we have government overspending and we need to. So like, this is not. It seems, of course, now it's a political thing, but at some point, both sides have been for this to begin with. But
everybody gives it lip service. Republicans and Democrats. President Trump is the first president to actually act on it. And this is why people voted for him on November 5th. I know we're rehashing stuff from a few months ago, but this is why people voted for him on November 5th, because they knew that he would follow through on his commitments, which people haven't seen that in the past from the political class. A lot of people find it refreshing.
Well, I called I'm going to get back to voter ID. So that's going to be on the ballot. Why is this? I would like to know an answer to this. Why is this a partisan issue?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So, I don't know. Now, Susan Crawford would say that it suppresses minority votes, and has been proven. Because I voted for photo ID, the photo ID law in Wisconsin. I voted for it in the legislature. What would that have been, back in 2011? And we were just harangued at that point, saying that you guys are going to suppress votes. You don't want African Americans voting, all the rest. Well, guess what happened? Vote totals went up in Wisconsin. They've consistently went up, and more people are voting than they did 15, 20, 30 years ago. You go back to the 90s, many more, in terms of numbers, many more people are in Wisconsin than they did back in the 90s. So it's been proven to be a lie. And the only thing you can say is that, is somebody trying to play the system? And I'm not saying everybody out there, but is somebody trying to play the system? Because look at something that just happened in the last 24 hours. The clerk down in the city of Madison in charge of elections, she's been put on leave. Now, I don't know if they fired her or whatever, but I know at a minimum she's been put on leave because she didn't count all the ballots down there. We raised this issue the first week of October, that there's a problem in Madison because they issued 2,000 duplicate ballots to absentee voters, and people were shouting us down saying, oh, it's not a big deal and all the rest. Well, now the city of Madison has had to take the action of putting their chief clerk in Madison on leave because they can't count the ballots. So you wonder what's going on, but at the end of the day, photo ID is an important protection to make sure that it's easy to vote but hard to cheat.
Do you think that's going to pass?
I think it's going to pass by a significant margin.
I kind of feel that way too.
Yeah. I guess it would pass with at least 60%.
I put 60% on it. I really did.
Yeah.
Interesting. So I was talking to I wouldn't say a political insider, but I'll just refer to, I don't know what to call him. He's down in Madison and works in the Capitol building. We just kind of BS every once in a while, and what's kind of the word around the Capitol. And this last weekend I was talking to him, and I said, so what are the three biggest things that are happening right now? And he said, well, of course, in Wisconsin, the three biggest things are the election and everything that comes in April 1st. Second thing is the Joint Finance Committee and the budget. And some of those things kind of have one thing, one has something to do with the other a little bit. But he said the third thing is ROFR. I said, I've heard of that, but I think that was a while ago, and that's right of first refusal. And I've even had smart people like Megan Novak speaking of AFP, who sponsors the show, she's tried to explain it to me. I'm too stupid to understand this, Tom. I don't get it. But apparently it is a huge deal, like tons of money and lobbying is going into this. What is this, and why is this such a big deal? Do you agree that this is a really big topic?
So the people in Madison can explain it better than I can, but my view of it is the reason it's such a big deal is because there's so much money at stake. There's going to be lots of transmission lines probably built here in the state of Wisconsin in the billions of dollars worth. And so there's a lot at stake. But at its very simplest form, what it is one group of people saying there should be a monopoly to allow transmission construction in Wisconsin by one firm. While the other side, you mentioned Megan Novak, amongst others, they're saying, no, we should have competitive bidding on this. And to me, that's really what it is all about in its simplest form. Do you just allow one company to be able to control the process, or do you have competitive bidding?
Where do you stand on it?
Well, I'm not in the legislature. I don't have a vote, but
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if I had to vote, I would vote. I would not vote for the bill. I don't. I don't believe that we should foster monopolies. I mean, um, yeah, I just don't
Sure.
believe that we should have monopolies. The bigger concern that I have is we've got these enormous subsidies coming. How did we get to this point that a bill like ROFR has come before the legislature? I believe it's because of the enormous subsidies that are being given to wind and solar. $50,000 an acre. $50,000 an acre. You, the taxpayer, are paying to in subsidies to these wind and solar developers. So this is all based on a lie that we're going to have more affordable, abundant electricity by having wind and solar. That's not the case. It's not that I'm categorically against wind and solar. Yeah, it should be part of the mix, but it shouldn't get these enormous subsidies. And we're seeing things like conversion of farmland. Thousands of acres in Wisconsin are being converted to these wind and solar facilities. I think that's a really bad public policy decision. And that flows from these subsidies that are coming from the federal government. But so also is, I believe, the ROFR issue, because it wouldn't be happening if you didn't have this artificial means of using government to put its hand on the scale for one form of energy versus another.
Mm.
Wind and solar should have to stand on its own, just like all the other sources of energy that are out there.
Does this tie into you? I don't know if it was introduced, but it was the Farm Act, wasn't it?
I did.
That ties into this? What we're talking about?
Yes, it fits into this whole thing. The Farm Act says you can build wind and solar facilities on productive farmland,
Mm-hmm.
but you will not get the subsidies, because I think there's one more thing more important than producing energy for society, and that is
Food.
growing food.
Yeah.
And here we are sidelining thousands of acres of farmland, some of the most productive in the world, right here in Wisconsin, and we're turning it into wind and solar, which we're seeing electricity prices go up. And this is part of the reason that they're going up. We're going to less efficient sources of energy production. Wind and solar are only available 25% of the time here in the upper Great Lakes states, and giving up baseload power. And we've seen California have blackouts, Western Europe have blackouts. You're seeing electricity prices going up, and we're losing farmland. I'm saying at a minimum, let's stop converting farmland, because it's a really bad choice.
I just want to quick point out. So I can't read all these comments because. So just FYI for the people, if you have a question, just ask a question, because I don't want to sit and read all of it to decide if there's even a question in there. So if you have a question, just please put that in, but just put in the question and the question only, please. Where do we then put the? If we don't want to use our farmland, so where do we put the solar panels in? Where do those go?
I mean, you could, some of the Western states, I mean, solar, where are you going to build it? You're going to build it where there's a lot of sunshine, Arizona, California, places like that. But remember, even when they're building them there, I believe it was the Ivampa project out in California that was built during the Obama administration, that's went broke, even where there's all kinds of sun. And we really need to pull as much of the subsidies out of this as possible and let them compete in the marketplace. And I think that goes back to the ROFR question. That we got to have competition. I mean, that's the way it is in America. Yeah. You got to be able to compete.
Yeah. You had a press release. We put it up on our website yesterday. Headline was Representative Tiffany asks DOGE to consider moving federal offices out of Sanctuary County. For people who didn't see that, what is that about?
Yeah, so you've got places like Dane County and Madison that are sanctuary counties, where they're saying ICE don't come in here and remove violent criminals who are illegal aliens in our country. We're not going to help you. In fact, we're going to hinder you. So if you want to play that game with the federal government doing one of its fundamental jobs, which is securing the border, making sure violent criminals are not coming into our country, If you're going to hinder the federal government from doing its job, then maybe we should take some of the federal agencies out of your community, because I'm sure there's many places in Wisconsin that would welcome these agencies. So it's once again, it's trying to have accountability here. And if the city of Madison and Dane County say, no, we're not going to help you, ICE, and in fact hinder you, then we should move those federal offices someplace else.
Do you think that's going to have any traction in Congress?
What I think is going to happen is I think the sanctuary communities around the country are going to start complying, because when you see, like we've already seen a few examples of a couple illegal immigrants who are supposed to be removed, and they let them out of jail rather than letting ICE pick them up in jail, which is a more secure location. They let them out, and then ICE has got to go find them in an apartment building, on the street, whatever, in a much less safe place. There's going to be an incident that's going to happen, and it's going to shame the local authorities who have these sanctuary policies. And so I think they're ultimately going to comply. And I'm not betting against Tom Homan. I can just tell you that.
It's been, I think, 52 days since President Trump was sworn in. Southern border, you and I have talked about the southern border on numerous occasions over the years. When Fitzy was on, Barron County Sheriff Chris Fitzgerald, who he and I do a weekly show on Tuesday, and I asked him this question towards the end of our show, because we talk about drugs a lot, of course, being a sheriff, and he has said many times, and you have said, and a lot of people have said, a lot of these drugs are coming from southern border, if not all, or they're not. There's no meth labs really in our area anymore. It's a thing of the past. But I asked him, when do we start seeing the reduction of drugs in our area? Is it 2 months? Is it 3 months? Is it 9 months? How is it going on the southern border? And when do you anticipate seeing the fruits of President Trump's decisions?
Well, we hope to see it real soon, but we know drug dealers are very creative and entrepreneurial, and they're going to try to find every way possible to continue to deliver those drugs. But I'm hearing, though I haven't been down there, that some of my colleagues who have visited with the sheriffs, in particular down in Arizona and Texas, they've said that there's already improvement that's happening. I mean, think about it. Border Patrol, rather than being a babysitter at this point, like they were the last 4 years, where they just simply process people in, catch and release, right? You catch them and you just release them into the country. That's done. Now Border Patrol is able to do their job of interdicting people. They're actually out there working, doing their job. We just had a hearing this week in the Natural Resources Committee, because I was down there a year ago to the Arizona border, and we were showing how much trash was down there. There's millions of pounds of trash that have been strewn across the southern border. And it's an environmental, it's just an environmental disaster. And so we were just pointing out that illegal immigration has a lot of harmful effects, not just the drugs, not just the terrorists and things like that, but it's also harming the environment. So the head of the Border Patrol Union was one of the witnesses, and I asked him very simply, are things better in 2025 than 2024? And he said, absolutely, they are better. And I think that you're going to see the Border Patrol be able to do their job now and interdict more of those drugs that are coming in. And I also think, Ben, that if they're not able to see some improvement there, I think the president's going to take very harsh measures to stop the cartels from doing what they're doing, delivering these drugs into America, because it is the number one killer of young people in America, and it has got to stop.
I remember when you were down there. I think you came on, for our monthly show. I think you were live from down there, if I remember right. Yeah, that was a little over a year ago. Hey, we have a question here from Mike. Question for Tom. Tiffany, how likely is the delisting of eastern gray wolf in upper Great Lakes region under the new political environment? Good question. Thank you, Mike.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. We'll have a hearing March 25th. I believe it's Tuesday. Let me look at my calendar here real quick. Yeah, Tuesday, March 25th, we're going to have a hearing on delisting the gray wolf. And I'm hoping we're going to go rapidly to a vote in the Natural Resources Committee to get it out of committee and then to the floor of the House. I expect that we'll pass it out of the House of Representatives, and then it's going to be a matter if the Senate will pass it. This is when we're going to really find out whether Tammy Baldwin wants to delist the wolf or not.
Yeah, I don't know where she is on that. That's weird. I can't really pin that one down.
Yeah, she's danced on the issue and signed on a few different bills, including the one that allows judicial review, which is just a poison pill. You'll never get control of wolves and be able to manage them appropriately if you allow judicial review, because the judges will just step in when the animal rights group go judge shopping. But we think we got a real chance here, and I'm hoping that Senator Baldwin, I know Senator Johnson's going to support us. I'm sure hoping Senator Baldwin will also. And I hope some of the other Midwestern senators will. Klobuchar in Minnesota, the two Democrats over in Michigan, Peters and Slotkin. Great harm is being done to their states, and let's allow the states to manage these wolves. So I think there's real possibility. The other thing that I'd say is there's a separate route to go on this, and that is to do it administratively, as President Trump did back in 2020. And I think at a minimum, he will do that. The problem is that's only good for the term of his presidency.
4 years, right.
Yeah. And it would be much better if we get done in statute through the Congress.
All right, we have a question here from Joey. I have questions about the proposed national park designation of the Apostle Islands Lakeshore. With Trump's recent executive order logging 280 million acres of national lands, what's to stop them from logging these lands? Also, what about the treaties with the Ojibwa people of Red Cliff?
I'll take the second one. It is very clear in the legislation I authored last session, and I'll be introducing again here soon, that this does not abrogate treaty rights in any way. We got this confirmed by the National Park Service. They reviewed our bill thoroughly, and they said it does not do that. We will be adding an amendment to the bill from last year when we introduce it this year to make it crystal clear. It does not infringe on tribal treaty rights in any way. And the National Park Service will continue to manage in regards to forests. If they think there's some patches of trees that need to be managed, harvested, whatever, they're going to make that decision. The National Park Service will make that decision. And by the way, sometimes it is good to harvest some of those trees, because otherwise they're going to go down at some point, either disease, wind, storm, whatever the case may be. So it's important to manage them appropriately, but it will be the National Park Service that makes those decisions.
All right. And lastly, here we have from Dan Erickson. What actions of the Musk-Trump administration do you disagree with? I did have one more topic, one more thing I just wanted your thoughts on, which is about tariffs, and I literally wrote down what the heck is going on with tariffs. So maybe that's one of your things. But there's the question from Dan. What actions of the administration do you disagree with?
Well, we'll disregard the snark from Dan listing it as the Trump administration. Yeah. I will address that. President Trump's made it very clear. He's got all kinds of people working for him besides Elon Musk. Russ Voda at Office of Management and Budget. He's got Pete Hegseth.
Sean Duffy's killing it, man. He's doing a great job. Sean Duffy's killing it.
Yeah, Sean's doing a great job. You're doing a great job. All these people are empowered to do the things that the people voted for on November 5th. All Elon Musk is doing is identifying these ways in which perhaps Congress should look at reining in spending, like $56,000 to water 8 plants, stuff like that. Let's get control of some of this, because that's how we got to be $37 trillion in debt. As far as something that I disagree with, I don't know that you're going to see Canada become the 51st state. Greenland become a state. I don't know that we're going to see those things. But I got to tell you, the direction we're going in right now, it's about time that we had accountability from our federal government. And thank the Lord that a president is actually doing this, because Congress should have been doing it for the last 30 years.
And what about tariffs? Every morning, Headline is we're doing this tariff. Wait, no, hold on. We're putting a pause on that. Well, now it's just about the steel. Well, now it's about this, and now it's EU, and then they say, well, now we're going to start doing the tariff. How is this going to end?
So I think ultimately what I hope to see happen is you're going to see tariffs largely go back to zero, because what the president is saying, if you tariff us, let's say 50% on a product, we're going to tariff you. It's simply reciprocal tariffs. That's what he's going to do. So take, we hear this hue and cry in regards to Canada. Well, Canada has dairy tariffs on milk and cheese and things like that are over 200%. Should our farmers, should we be allowing dairy products into our country tariff free while Canada is tariffing us 200%?
Yes.
I don't think so. And that's all the president is saying at this point. You're going to tariff that way, then we are also. The time of what we call free trade is over. We're now going to have fair trade. And hopefully what happens is countries will say, okay, let's bring the tariffs down so that we have more free trade. And that's where I think we ultimately end up at.
All right. Well, we're almost up against our time here. You, I saw on your website, I think it's every year. The headline was Tiffany announces 2025 congressional art competition. How do people find out more about that? And if people don't know, what is that about? And how do they find out more?
Yeah, there's an annual art competition that's been going on for decades. The grand prize winner gets their piece of art displayed in the tunnel between the House buildings and the United States Capitol. For those that have been out in Washington, D.C., they'll know the tunnel goes underneath the streets, and it's where hundreds and thousands of people every day walk through that tunnel to get between the Capitol and the House office buildings. The grand prize winner from each district gets their piece displayed. It's really cool. And then we also display a piece in my office here in Wisconsin. And so people can just go to our website. They can find it there. Go to Congressman Tiffany. By the way, don't go to the political website. Go to my actual official site, Congressman Tom Tiffany, and they'll find the information there to be able to go about it. But we get dozens of submissions each year, and we really urge people out there, whether it's art teachers, whoever, get kids involved, because we love getting those great pieces of artwork that come in from these young people.
Yeah, and it's like, I can't remember. It was like 7th through 12th grade, or there was kind of a limit on there. But I'm somewhat of an artist myself. So my question to you is, if I submitted something, are you going to demand a photo ID to prove that that wasn't from a high school person?
Are you going to use an alias?
Maybe.
We're going to ask for your art teacher.
All right.
I bet your art teacher, knowing you probably got kicked out of class.
I'm probably the only person who didn't get an A in art, because all you have to do in art is just put in an effort. I'm like, I'm terrible at art. I really am. I have no creative mind at all.
Well, Mr. Larson back in Elmwood, he didn't hand out A's. I sure said. He said, "Dom, could you try a little bit?"
I mean, I could. Question is, do I want to? All right, what do you have coming up this week? I think I put something up yesterday. Someone, it was a paid post for an event that's coming up. I think it's this Saturday in Washburn County, I think, or it's in Baronet. I can't remember if Baronet's in Washburn or if that's in Barron County. It was a Moms for Liberty, which I'm not 100% sure what that is, but an event, and I thought your name was on there. Are you going to be at that event this Saturday at 9 or 9:30 in Baronet?
Yeah, I hope to be there on Saturday with the Moms for Liberty, and good group and doing good stuff. And yeah, looking forward to coming over there, and we'll probably make a couple other stops over in Western Wisconsin while we're over there on Saturday.
How does that work? Do they just people just call your office, organizers, and just say, hey, you want to show up? Do they have to usually give like a 2-month notice? Because, your schedule gets pretty busy. Just kind of the inside stuff.
Yeah. The more notice, the better. But people send us stuff all the time. And one thing I have my staff do is they always put contingent events going on, both unofficial and official, that if for some reason I'm going through an area and I can stop into a place, it happens to work out, that we've got stuff that's there. And I'm not guaranteed to attend, but sometimes I can make it. So we got stuff that is both set in stone, and then there's contingent stuff.
Sure.
But yeah, my calendar, there's lots of stuff on it.
I can't imagine. All right, so we hit our time, but as always, is there anything else you want to talk about or say that we didn't get a chance to talk about?
God, I can't think of anything else. Another action-packed show.
I know. It seems like lately we're having more and more. I usually just like to start a show and we talk about whatever. And I'm like, man, but I got to make sure we bring up this and this. And of course, we had questions. And I'm sorry, didn't even get a chance to get to some of the. Again, when they're really long, I can't really read them. So try to keep those shorters. We have one last quick question. I'll throw it in. Dan, when are you having an in-person town hall?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Dan. Had 7 town halls just a little over a month ago, including in Rice Lake and Amory, and where else? We were in Ladysmith. We were all over doing in-person town halls just a little over a month ago. We'll be doing them again sometime soon, but really busy time at this point, and out in Washington, D.C., so I'm sure that's going to take a lot of our time, but yeah, we'll be doing more here as we go along.
I don't know why any of you guys do that. Look, if I would never do a town hall ever. That's the word. I've been to one of those. I remember while speaking of Sean Duffy, when he was in your seat, this was years ago. I remember going to one because I'd never been to a town hall, and he was here in Spooner. So I wanted to go and I wasn't doing it for DrydenWire to do a story on it. I just went to, I'm like, I've never been to one of these things. Yeah, I was a little embarrassed. Just because it was just so rude. Like everyone yelling lies and shame, and all had signs, and that's fine if you disagree with the man, but let him at least answer the question. Like they wouldn't let him even answer the question. I'm like, why do you do this? Why does anybody do this?
I actually love town halls, and in the 7 that we did just a little over a month ago, I mean, there were people that are very critical of me, and I don't have a problem with that.
That's fine.
Including if they get passionate, but you got to allow others to ask questions also. There's people there that want to hear their voice heard in a variety of ways, whether it's veterans issues, IRS, you name it. You just you want people to be respectful. I understand if they're passionate and they disagree with me, but I'm going to answer the question and be very forthright with them as far as where I stand, and I hope they'll respect it. The one thing that I would say to people who are really harsh critics, and it doesn't matter whether you're Republican or Democrat, when you go to a town hall like that and you start shouting at the elected official, the people who are neutral in the room, they tend to gravitate to the person that's being shouted at. I've actually picked up votes from people who, they're not full-blown Tom Tiffany supporters, but when they've seen the rudeness and they've seen somebody really yelling at them, which that's fine. Go ahead and do it if you want to. They actually end up being more likely to vote for me in the next election. That's the cautionary tale I would put out to those that want to come in and disrupt and things like that. You actually make us look better.
That's actually really funny. I never thought about that. All right. Tom, thanks so much.
Hey, I got a boogie.
All right, man. Special thank you to Wisconsin's 7th Congressional District Representative Tom Tiffany for taking the time to come on for a chat today. And thank all of you for your comments and questions. I'll see you on Tuesday for another episode of Positive Tuesday with Ben and Fitzy. So until then, for DrydenWire.com, I'm Ben Dryden saying thank you for watching, and as always, have a blessed day.